Hi, I'm Barry Clark. Welcome to the Mortgage and Property Podcast, brought to you by Mortgage Monster. Now sit back, relax and get ready for top tips, tricks and advice to help you with all of your mortgage and property needs. Welcome to the Mortgage and Property Podcast. Today I'm joined by John from Choose Right Construction. How you doing, John? You all right?
Fine, thanks, mate.
Excellent, all right? Good. Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. Today we're going to be discussing all things from extensions to dormers to loft conversions and anything construction related. John, how you doing? You all right? You all good?
Yes, mate.
Cool.
Thank you very much for asking.
All right, all good. So we're going to kick off with a few quick questions just to get to know you. So some random ones. What's your favourite TV programme?
The Rookie.
What's that? I'm not seeing that. Is it good?
It's a police series, yeah. It's got Nathan Fillion in it, the guy from, I want to say Desperate Housewives, but...
You can't say Desperate Housewives. So I know you watch Desperate Housewives.
He was in a brilliant show when he was younger called Firefly. And,
yeah.
He does a lot of stuff with Joss Whedon, but he's the director of this program.
Cool.
So it's about a middle-aged man who becomes a police rookie in America and the adventures that obviously follow. Yeah, so
cool.
It's quite a good program. I like that.
I think I know this already. Who's your favourite band?
Metallica.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. I thought it'd be someone like Pearl Jam. All right,
they're high on the list.
Are they? Yeah. All right. Cats or dogs?
Both, but dogs preferably, really.
No worries at all. And tea or coffee?
Tea.
Yes, hence you drink a cup of tea. And do you like summer or winter more?
Summer.
Summer. Same as me, mate. Got ginger skin, so like we just both burn.
I love it, yeah.
Each of our lives build and go back to white again.
I like when it's dry, but I like when it's cold. So you early summer's better.
Excellent. I've actually known John for many years.
Yes.
John first of all came round and he did an extension for us, our own home, didn't you, mate?
I did.
John came round and we've basically got him to thank for our amazing property we didn't realise we'd ever have. John basically, we had a few builders round and we were touring. The idea was we bought a little 2-bedroom bungalow over in Benfleet. And we had 2 or 3 builders round. They all came around and give us quotes, and it was only yourself that kind of came round and went, "Why are you doing that? Why are you going out for a single story rear extension? Why don't you look at maybe going up into the loft? You go up in the loft. After you've gone up in the loft, then maybe you could bring the edges of it out to make it bigger. You've got the whole space upstairs. Once you've done that, then we can bring that bit forward. We can go over here and just see how we get. We'll try to get it all through plan and see what happens." Well, we did that, and we got it all, which then had a different problem, which is how do we raise the funds for that? And we'll come back to that in a little bit. But we then had to raise the money to try and get that, to get all the building work done. And it's thanks to John that we live in the house that we've got now, which is the most amazing place in the world. It's beyond what we ever thought we would have. And when we turn up, literally put up on the drive and we're like, wow, I can't believe we live here. And John built loads of cool stuff for us. Anything we said we want to do this, he always looked at me and went, "You can't do that. That's mental." And then about 3 hours later, he'd come back to me and go, "Yeah, I found out a way of doing that. We can definitely get that done."
Yeah, I don't like to make it easy for you.
No. The secret door is amazing. Everyone loves a secret door. Mm-hmm. So we have, in our house, we have a secret door that basically goes through to it's now Jack's PlayStation room. Which is,
that was always going to be the case. He was going to take that.
So it's really, really cool. So we have a door, it looks like a bookcase, and you push one end of it, it just comes open, and inside you've got this amazing little PlayStation room. Mm-hmm. And what else did we do? We did the walk-through shower. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was your idea.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. And when we first did it, we had no idea what we were going to end up with. We just kind of trusted you and what you said and that sort of stuff, and just bit the bullet and kind of went for it, really.
You can get it right once in a lifetime, can't you?
Right, no, that's not just once. That was our first project, and since then we've probably done another, 7 or 8, 9, 10, whatever else it is. We've done a few more projects.
7. Yeah, definitely.
So we've done
at least 7.
All of our stuff from there on in. Yeah. The latest one we done was a new build, wasn't it? 3-bedroom.
Yeah, Mallion Court Close.
It's pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely job to work on.
Yeah,
and a big challenge from the start with having to think about all the rules and regulations that go with it, and risk assessments and method statements, and making sure guys are wearing all the right gear. Yeah, we got in a bit of trouble to start with health and safety executive, but kind of managed to smooth it over with a few more visits. And
after you fell down the hole,
I'll never forget that guy's face.
It should have been all bounded off, roped off.
Poor Steve, he was sitting down having a cup of tea, and he came running over from the other side of the site, but you could see he was dying. He was trying so hard not to laugh at the same time as trying to offer to pick this guy up.
The health and safety guy was coming to make sure everything was safe.
Yeah.
Dive down a hole.
Well, I asked him if he wanted to sit down. I said to him, "So go down the ramp. That's nice and smooth. Don't go to the edge of this trench that we dug." And he got to the edge of it, stuck his foot out into midair, and just launched himself off. And of course, went wrong. He landed on his face, and so we tried to pick him up. And he said, "No, COVID."
It was at the time of COVID.
It was at the time that everybody was wearing masks and being careful. And after about 30 seconds of rolling around like a tortoise on his back, he said, "Okay, you can help me get up now." And then. So that was his first visit.
That was the first health and safety visit on a new build site.
We were in for such a rocket at the time. I think he was so embarrassed he had to be lenient then. It worked out all right in the end, So it was a comedy of errors to get started for sure.
Yeah,
but it was a good job. It was a good job. Apart from the challenges that we faced with rising cost of materials,
it's got crazy. It's gone mental, hasn't it?
And everything that we planned for and worked towards to keep the budget tight, kind of went out the window. I was having to go and collect all the timber by myself, or with Steve, and having it dropped outside the yard and then loading it onto the van. So there was a serious set of challenges to get it done.
Yeah.
When you think about the cost of the initial pricing structure for the roof on that.
Yeah.
By the time we'd actually bought the timber, which was 3 or 4 months after we priced it, it came out nearly double the price.
Yeah. It was crazy. Timber went crazy. We needed more kind of timbers for the roof line, didn't we? And that sort of stuff to make it stronger.
And it didn't help to have an architect that had suggested all these people that we could use to help us along the way, and they turned out to be less than efficient at their job. The structural engineer that we first encountered, because some of them they like to go overkill, don't they? And when I pushed him on it and said to him, this level of design is unnecessary. It's a timber. Yeah. It's a timber structure with rooms in it. We can do this pretty much without any steels. I feel, but he kind of, once they've got it in their head what they want, they're very difficult to move. So, and of course, we changed over to a structural engineer that we've used on previous jobs.
You seem much better, didn't
and
he?
Trust, and it was designed the way we wanted it. So, a lot of what we do is about who you know, rather than taking suggestions from.
The thing you find is probably that is there a client? We'll go for this in a second. So actually, let's just go back through. So normally when someone first starts to plan for an extension, we'll talk about costings afterwards. When they first start to plan for an extension, what is the process that they need to go through? Initially, so I mean, if you meet someone in the very early days, they're giving you a call and go, "Look, John, I need a bit of hand. Can you come over? We're looking at an extension. We want to build, a single story roof extension, or we want to go up in the roof and do a loft extension. Where do we start?" What happens then, mate? What do they kind of do from that point on?
The ideal scenario is to start with your builder or someone that can give you a few ideas of how that can work. Okay. And if it's appealing to you to go one way or the other, your next step is to get an architect on board. Mm-hmm. The architect will then draw you a set of plans based on what you've asked for.
We are going to have an architect on some point later on in the podcast, but what you tend to find from a building point of view is they make quite a lot of assumptions, and sometimes when you come to actually build what it is they've put down, some of the assumptions they've assumed, sometimes they're wrong. Like, the existing timbers, for example, that are there when you come out of a roof, for example, they'll assume they're a certain way, whereas if the property was built maybe 50 odd years ago, it's very unlikely they're going to use that gauge of timber, isn't it? They're going to use a much lower gauge of timber, so you have to change some of the rest of it to make it all right.
For sure. I mean, what we find is most architects, they'll look at a structure. They won't necessarily pop, if it's, it's a good example to say loft extension. They won't necessarily pop their head up inside the loft and see which way the existing joists are spanning from, whether it's side to side or front to back on the property. That can have a real effect on the finished accommodation height.
Like roof height, you mean, basically?
Yeah, but the internal roof height, if we've had, jobs in the past where they've made assumptions, where we lay our joists in, we try to lay them within the span of the existing joist so that they sit down nice and low to give you more room
in head height, so you don't have to come up.
So you've got that feeling of space, because not all lofts are 3 metres tall inside.
Yeah.
And obviously, by the time you stick heavier gauge joists in for to make it livable, and then you need to make bigger rafters to accommodate for insulation, obviously strength.
Yeah.
You lose, your average lofts, you'll lose something like 200 to 250 millimetre on the existing height that you show within.
Yeah.
So if they make those assumptions wrong, then you can lose a lot more.
End up walking around kind of all like hunkered down and
So it's careful planning, but for the most part, they will do the designs.
Okay.
If you like them, you submit them to the council. Then obviously you have to sit and wait. If it's under permitted development law, it's around the 8-week mark for an answer.
And permit development is things like, for example, building with an existing structure. So that would be like, for example, like a loft conversion.
Yeah.
And you're in some areas and some places, is it everywhere you're allowed to go a maximum of kind of so many meters, depending on garden height, the rear of your property and so on?
Yeah. I mean, basically speaking, it can change from area to area.
Yeah.
But what they don't like to see is whatever extension, if you're building a ground floor extension, they don't like to see that will then occupy more than 25% of the
garden
land
area
within it.
Yeah.
So
does that include the front as well? Does that include like the front bit as well, or just the rear garden?
Front, no. I mean, if we're talking about permitted development, that applies to the rear of the property or to the roof line.
Okay.
In some cases, you can sneak it by on a side extension, but anything that, generally speaking, you can see from the road, you have to put in actual planning permission for.
Okay.
Again, it's a similar cost, but generally speaking, you'll wait between 8 and 12 weeks for an answer.
A bit longer.
And the difference being with planning permission is that anybody who lives within the vicinity that has a view on the property will have the opportunity to raise a concern or to say they don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, it's got to be a valid reason. And councils
I don't
aren't
like it.
silly.
That like
no, if someone just goes to, I don't like that. They've got to have a real reason for it. And under circumstances, you can appeal it.
Would it be like cutting out light and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, everybody's got a right to light now. So
okay.
The biggest things that can affect that is a second story extension on the rear if you're in a semi-detached or a terrace property.
Okay.
Because obviously your neighbours have got, they're allowed to have a field of vision that extends 45 degrees each direction from their rear windows.
Like that. So if you've got someone that's built out here, you're not going to get that anymore because they're not looking.
Yeah. So you're looking at a flat wall. Yeah. So sometimes it can be a bit difficult to plan those right.
Yeah.
In some cases, if it's a semi-detached property, what you can do is form a separate tower that only occupies half of the ground floor extension, go up like that, and then you can still maintain that field of vision for your neighbours.
So is that why sometimes you will find that when you have a second story extension, it does come in quite a bit from kind of both sides?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, generally speaking, if it's two properties joined, you'd push that top floor extension all the way to the opposite side of the house. And that tends to work better with access from the internals upstairs as well. Allows for more space in the bedroom.
Okay.
So pushing it to the middle, you force yourself out of the right to light and air as well, because any windows you've got on the existing property up top, they're both going to be casting shadow at some point or another through the course of the day.
Yeah.
So, I do know when it comes to planning, they don't like seeing that unless it's, a massive, like kind of seeing like sort of a detached property with not much around it.
Okay.
I've lost my train of thought now. But,
that's all right.
So when it comes to permitted development, get it drawn up, put it in, wait for your answer. Don't spend any more money at that point.
Just hold off for a while.
Yeah, just get your plans in and done. If obviously then you've got the permission to do the job in the first place, your next phase of the job is to get structural calculations and drawings done.
Okay.
So this involves if it's a ground floor extension, this involves your depth of footing.
Yeah.
It might involve investigations into the existing property, what type of footing they're on.
Okay.
Sometimes that can involve doing like a deep borehole test at the rear. If it's rear of property, doing a deep borehole test to check what the ground is like. So it might be silty clay, could be London clay.
Yeah.
Those have different factors and bearings on what you can do in terms of footings.
So does that mean some footings, depending on the ground, they might have to be like low enough? So is it really clay? Means you have to go further down, for example, normally, or if it fills up with water, you have to be careful of that?
It depends on local council rules, really. Okay. And a good structural engineer will know those at the time. Generally speaking, they like to say for a single-story extension, 1.5 metres is a minimum requirement these days.
Yeah.
It used to be 1,200, but, as we go forward, lots and lots of people are extending. The groundwater levels are rising as well, and all that can have an effect on those footings. Yeah. Now, of course, the next thing you have to worry about is if you've got trees in the vicinity.
Okay. Because of the roots and coming into the...
Yeah, I mean, if you... Let's say, for example, you've got an ash tree in a neighbouring garden.
Okay. Is that particularly bad, is it?
It's not horrendous, but this is a problem. I mean, counting on a job we're due to start this year. It's 7 metres from the boundary of the new build. Okay. Now, the blanket law, when it comes to an ash tree, if it's within 21 metres of the build, then the footing type has to change. Okay. And that's where it becomes more involved. Yeah. Building control officers will tend to spot that on the first visit. Yeah. Unless you've got on top of it beforehand and spoken to them. But generally speaking, if we were to do a strip footing that generally is 450 millimetres wide, 1,500 millimetres deep, that's substantial enough. Yeah. If you've got a tree like that within the vicinity, you then have to think about digging the trench 600 millimetres wide. Yeah. Potentially you have to go down maybe 2.4, 2.6 metres. I mean, it depends on building control, and that varies from area to area as well. And even sometimes then we have to put anti-heave, which is a polystyrene sheet, within that strip footing.
So either side sandwich it basically?
No, it goes on the inside of the footing. Because what happens is, if you've got a tree that close to a property, what happens, that takes the water away from the ground surrounding it. Yeah. So once you introduce this strip footing that effectively stops the tree from drinking the water from the ground within the build, that water will then rush back in, so it swells the ground inside. So the anti-heave is designed to compress within the build, and then allow that earth to move, because obviously it will get wet, then it will get dry, then it will get wet, like everything does. But that clay master will crush. Mm-hmm. And it will allow everything within to move without damaging the footings. Okay. We had a job at Brentwood, tiny little extension, and I ended up, because it was on the back of Frithwood Forest. Yeah. The closest tree was 22 metres away. That was an oak, and we still had to do the depth of footings. So we came out 2.3 metres and went across about 2.8 metres. Okay. And I was down at 12 foot, finishing off the trench. And of course, by the time we dug that, it was only an L shape, just to finish off the extension that was there. You've then got groundwater going back into it while you're trying to dig. Yeah. If you can't pour the footings the same day, you've got to pump it out the following day. Then just you have to clean, because it's got wet. You have to clean the last bits of wet clay out to get a nice even substrate on the ground to get the footing in. So it does become a lot more technical.
So is that the reason why, normally if there are not, it's very like generalization, but basically when you're out of the ground, then you can then, be able to properly kind of know how much your extension is going to cost, because basically when you're kind of in the ground, there are lots and lots of variables, aren't there? Yeah, for sure. So I know it's kind of almost impossible to kind of check until you've done those investigative investigation digs. Once you've done your once you've done your investigation digs, at least you know then what sort of ground you're working with, and at that point then you should better know what your exact costings are, because I know sometimes we do hear on kind of forums, that sort of stuff, people are going, well, I was quoted this for extension and ended up being this much more. Well, look, if there is stuff which happens beyond your control, you can't necessarily plan for that. You're obviously going to help to work with clients within that to make sure that, you can maybe look to cut costs in another area or whatever else it is. Yeah. But I understand that kind of getting out the ground normally is the most kind of trickiest and potentially difficult part you can have when it comes to your budget.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't like to, whenever Steve or I are pricing jobs, we don't like to guess the things we've got to do to make that job happen for someone. Of course, there's lots of things that don't help us in that cause.
I mean, mate, from all the from all the jobs that we've had previously, as and when we have come across problems, it's a case of working out a solution for those problems. And if it does mean, so for example, when we did our house, first of all, it meant that we did encounter, a couple of issues. It meant that we just had to kind of be more creative at the back end in terms of kind of finishing and those sorts of bits and pieces. And we were able to kind of bring our build, back within control again, even when stuff did jump out and kind of hit us by surprise.
Yeah.
So it's just all about being, very slightly flexible. And as you say, just having a bit of a contingency, basically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your job didn't really fall into the category of having too many problems. To be fair,
no.
Because you're building over an existing structure. The footings are substantial enough that they're holding a roof on already.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you're doing there, you're not particularly adding
more weight,
great amounts of weight. As long as you use the load bearing walls to take the load of the new floor and plan all of the angles and all of the timbers right, then the weight spread across that load.
Yeah,
it's when a very popular job that we've encountered for the last 2 or 3 years is this wonderful idea about social space for people, big kitchens, islands,
really popular, aren't they?
Yeah, lounges within that space, and then effectively taking away what used to be the family living room, making that a bit smaller to accommodate just a snug, a hidey hole for someone to go to. Those things are brilliant. Those extensions, they're great to work on, and when you see the finished product, people Amazing. Are happy with that, and you get that social space. But they involve a lot of steel and a lot of time to get that right.
Well, if you're going to make it open plan, you've got to take out the back of the house potentially, and there's a lot of weight in the back wall of the house. So it's a case of being able to, hold the house up, pop the steel in, make sure that the house sits well on the steel, and then you've got that open space and then go out even more, haven't you?
Well, not only that, you've got if the existing footings of that house aren't substantial enough, when you've got a solid wall built across there, it's all load bearing right across that whole footing.
Yeah.
Effectively speaking, to take out that middle section and create what we call a goalpost to support the house. If those footings aren't substantial enough, what will happen is you overload the outside edges and you can cause those to sink, but it also causes the middle to force itself up.
Just goes banana shape, basically.
Yeah, so that's why sometimes you have to dig down and put pad stones in, put load spreaders. Yeah. In some cases, it can mean going down 1.5 metres and then 1.2 metres square into the ground where you plan to put your steels up.
Yeah.
In order to help with that load.
Yeah.
It's technical.
It made it very technical. But before we start doing any work, so it was like, just seem that I'll just chuck a couple of bricks up. It should be nice and easy. Chuck a wall on, chuck some doors in. Yeah. Don't know what you're whinging about. That was about 7 or 8 years ago. I've learned a bit since then.
I've used that one on you a few times, mate. The whinging is definitely it's calmed down a lot. It's a lot of it is overcoming clients' questions and their fears.
Yeah.
To make them feel comfortable with us doing their job for them. We turn up every morning, we do everything that we're asked to do. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, we kind of end up being kept back for a few extras here and there and other bits and pieces. And it's all good fun. But it's just in the nature of the job that these things will happen.
Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at then. So basically, we just go back a couple of steps. So let's go back to we're now out of the ground.
Right.
What kind of happens after that? I just burped then. Let's go back to where we were. So basically, we've come out of the ground. Yep. From that point on, then is going to be relatively in terms of like budget and cost. At that point, then we pretty much know where we are once we're out of the ground. It's kind of all the variables pretty much are then kind of done and dusted.
Yeah,
and it makes it then much easier then to kind of then budget the rest of the job, I assume.
Yeah.
Apart from when I suppose clients make changes. And how often? I know we were a bit guilty of this as well. How much more costly is it to kind of make changes? So you're just completely tight-lipped. How much more difficult is it to kind of make changes as you're kind of going through the job?
It's Are we talking about cost or how difficult can it be?
But both, because the more difficult is obviously probably the more cost, not difficult, but the more time consuming it is.
Yeah.
That'll obviously add a layer of cost on.
Yeah, sometimes it can. Sometimes it can make a job a little bit quicker. You know, if someone decides, for example, that they don't want as big an opening, it just means a bit more brickwork, but less cost on the window. So the cost can be comparative.
Yeah.
You know, other times, if you decide, right, well, I wanted that opening to be 5 meters wide for a set of bifolds, and then you suddenly decide, well, I can get another meter on that. If the client asks for that, well, that changes lots, because then
the steel across the back, they've already got a big steel hold it all up.
Yeah, the steel dimensions change, the way you prop them up changes.
Yeah.
So these are all things that you should really try to get as square before you start, to you know, make sure the job progresses how you want to.
Okay.
And of course, the biggest thing we find is if you've got lead time on materials as well.
What's the thing? Doors and windows. I mean, how long is the average wait for kind of doors and windows at the moment? Steels and that sort of stuff. Is it kind of adding a bit of time?
Steels have never been too bad. You know, generally speaking, within a week you can get those. You know, sometimes the following day. It's more about the things that we can't control. So when it comes to windows and doors.
Lanterns and
anything to do with double glazing, especially at the moment, there's minimum 4 to 6 week lead times.
Okay.
You know, sometimes when it goes to aluminium, the profiles can be a bit harder to get depending on the thickness you want on the profile.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, roof tiles have, you know, invariably over the last 3 years, you know, dare I say it, since the first lockdown, materials.
You can tell me prices have gone up.
Yeah. Our prices have definitely gone up. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. Must make it quite a difficult kind of plan, since you've got a job towards the end of the year to trying to kind of juggle it all. And
yeah. I mean, some of our lead times are, you know, a few months away. But you have to make everybody aware that those things are beyond your control. Yeah. You know, and I'm kind of proud that we have absolute clarity with our clients in terms of, well, this is how much this is costing you, you know, and the receipts are there for people to see if they want to. Yeah. So as long as they know that they're not being cheated out of money for no reason, I think people are good with that.
Fair. Yeah, as long as it's fair on both sides, basically.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So one of the other questions that we've covered off, you know, what do we need to do beforehand? What we do when it's all kind of done? Is there kind of a sign-off process? Or so how do we know that it's all done as per it should have been done, basically? Is there kind of a building control check?
Any build you do, within a property, you have to involve local building control council, or, you know, from your council. You know, there are private companies that you can initiate to do that. But a building control officer will make several visits through the course of every job. Okay, to check as it goes along, basically. Yeah, so generally speaking, they'll visit the job when you first start to have a good preliminary chat about the things that they want to see, and it gives you the opportunity to, as a builder, to clarify things that you'd like to do. Mm-hmm. There's always middle ground to be found, you know, and how you work stuff out and how it goes. So they'll come out for that primary visit. You'll have your chat. If you're building from the ground out, then they'll want to see the trench that you've dug, or, you know, the excavation, see that you've done that right before you make your pour for your concrete. Yeah. Once that's done, generally speaking, they want to see it up to the structure height. Mm-hmm. So just before your roof on, is it? Yeah, just before roof on, or you know, again, it depends on who's doing the building control inspections. Sometimes they won't want to see it until you've actually built the structure itself as well, so you've got the roof onto it. And then after that, it tends to be an installation visit. Okay. To check what you're putting in it and making sure that's right. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, you'll have one visit after that says, well, they've done the job right. You know, we're happy. Yeah. We need to see a couple of certificates. Generally speaking, if we've done any work with boilers or gas, they'd want to see a safety certificate for that. You know, the certificate, electrical safety certificate, to prove that that's all done properly as well. Yeah. If there's any particular type of windows and doors that have gone in, if there's fencer certificates to be had, they'll want to see those as well. Yeah. And then once they've got all that information from the client, because generally speaking, it's you as the client that would Once you've got those certificates from your builder, you then submit them to building control again, and then building control will sign off on the property for you.
Okay.
I mean, they're not too invasive, but you have to satisfy building control. That's basically it. At the end of the day, if they're happy, they'll sign off on the job for you. And of course, if we wouldn't be doing our job properly if you didn't get that at the end.
Yeah.
So once that's done, you move into it and you live with it and you enjoy it. Yeah.
That's really good. As I say, you have to have that building control sign off because, as I say, when we see sometimes when clients can maybe come to sell properties, if they haven't gone through the correct process, if they were to sell the property, that definitely kind of comes up in all the searches that solicitors ask and all this sort of stuff. They will be us kind of trying to provide those. Yeah. Trying to provide that information 10 or 15 years down the line is virtually impossible.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's always a battle. If you've not got that done, then you're into the realms of indemnity insurances and
all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of trouble really. So do it right and do it once.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. One of the really, really big, and I know this is very general, so bear with me, all right? And we won't kind of nail it to the wall or whatever else it is. If I want to have an extension, how much would it cost? Just give me a rough idea. And I know you're not going to. You're sitting there going, "Why are you asking me this?" Because I haven't got an answer for it. But we just want to give you just kind of a bit of an idea. So if, say, for example, I know I was building a 25 metre extension off the back of my home, have you got kind of a rough, just so clients know maybe what they might be expecting to kind of spend potentially? I know it's not, going to be completely true, but do you have kind of a rough figure that you might work from, just so clients can get a bit of a cost at least? Or would it be best to kind of give you a call first, get you around, have a quick look and see what you think? I mean, tell me what it is. I mean, tell me how it is that you price stuff. Is it so much per square metre? Give me an idea, just so clients get an idea of roughly how much their extension is going to cost.
Yeah, every job is different because they come with their own set of problems or bits to negotiate over. Kind of a baseline idea to work to, £1,500 a square metre isn't a bad start. If the job's a lot easier than it needs to be, then obviously we can adjust that price. I mean, that tends to be for builds. If it's renovations, it's around £1,000 a square metre mark.
And would you have to add on things like bifold doors, lanterns, heating, electrics? You'd probably have to add on then, I don't know, as I say, if you want to kind of, as I say, bifold doors are normally the main cost because they can be thousands and thousands, can't they?
Yeah. But then obviously if
kitchens and
bifold doors can be within that price unless you're really flamboyant with them, which is why I say it changes from job to job.
Yeah.
The big thing is within the price that we quote, kitchens and bathrooms are the two things that are the most personal choice that any person can make. So our price tends to include just the labour to fit those things.
Yeah.
And if we can help the client with trade discounts with some of the companies that we work with, to help with that cost. So we'd like to see that the client will pay for the kitchen and arrange for delivery at some point, or I'll go and pick it up if it's local. Their bathrooms, again, because it's such a big personal choice.
Could be $3,000, could be $15,000, depending on what they want.
I mean, if you want gold plated baths and all that kind of stuff, it's too difficult to price for those things. And because they're personal choice, it's easier to leave that to the client. Of course, we can help along the way, put you in touch with the people that we deal with that can give the trade discounts. Yeah. Because nobody wants to be paying retail prices on bathroom suites and kitchens, but you pay for your kitchen yourself. We'll fit it within that price, and make sure it's done and you're happy with it. The same with when it comes to bathrooms. I
know we've got a great little bathroom place, haven't we?
Well, I mean, your bathroom was a nightmare.
But we have got a good little bathroom place that we can kind of help people out with, and you have to go through a scrapyard to get there, but it is really, really good and really, really cheap.
Oh, hey, the prices are amazing. It's fantastic, but it comes a bit dusty sometimes. But yeah, it's brilliant. But again, the other things, choices of flooring and tiles. Massive and that kind of thing. Within that kind of price structure, labour to fit those things is within that. It's the personal choice things that you'd have to pay for yourself. I mean, I don't like to use the word extra because they're not really extra. It's just things you have to think about because those are personal choice items,
yeah,
we keep that out of our equation. And, we can price a job to go and buy kitchen fitted, but we may get it wrong.
Yeah, and it might not be the style that you want, or may not be
Yeah.
whatever else it is, or the colour or type or layout. Or
Yeah.
So normally even if I said it's a worst case scenario, it might be looking at, say, I don't know, for a 25 square metre extension, even if it was, say, £2,000 a square metre plus kit, might have been 50 grand plus your kitchen, plus there's a bathroom involved. There could have been kind of 60 grand or something like that.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
kind of
the personal things, the choices that you make as a client will affect the price.
Yeah. I mean, you can
we
get
have it so often that people don't realise how much they're going to spend on a kitchen these days.
Yeah.
Or how little they'll spend on tiles if they buy the right ones. Some finishes and fittings can be changed later.
Yeah.
When the budget dictates. And of course, you have the other end of the scale where people aren't worried about budgets and just know what they want and go for it.
We see here, we do see here quite a lot whereby a client will kind of, start off on a process of getting extensions, start your builders in, and they'll come back to maybe halfway through a build and go, look, I need a bit of help now. I do need to borrow a bit more. What can we do? And in those situations, we can help people.
Yeah.
But, it is often the case that sometimes it is easy for people to kind of fall into the thing of going, well, I'm only doing this once. I'm not going to be doing it again. So therefore, I want what I want to have. And sometimes, people will be spending, I don't know, £50 a square metre where they can get something which is really, really similar. And it's only maybe £15 a square metre. So, I know it is tough times, especially when you get to a point where you're probably never going to do this ever again. You're in your forever home. It is sometimes easy to let budgets kind of run away. So, the only thing that we would say to kind of counterbalance that and not, having clients come back to us panicked halfway through the build, and doing a build is stressful. When money's involved in anything, any form of extension, any form of build, it's stressful because it's your life's turned upside down by it. So we understand some clients can get really, really stressed out. They do come back halfway through the build and go, I don't know what I'm doing. We've run out of money. How can you help? And in most cases, in some cases we can help clients so they can get through to their end product.
Yeah.
But probably I suppose the most important lesson is to make sure that you plan. Even if you've already got your kitchen, you've gone shopping for your kitchen, you know what it's going to be. You've got that budget in. I think it's very easy to maybe get carried away if you're maybe halfway through and then you go kitchen shopping because you've kind of budgets does sometimes kind of go out of the window a little bit, especially if you see something that you love to bits, or you go to one of the large suppliers like Renault, whatever, and get talked into having the best worktops and the best kitchen. They've got bit the lights in, and suddenly your budget can go from £5,000 on a kitchen to being £25,000 on a kitchen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you negotiate your way back down a little bit with the kitchen places, but it is easy, and they are beautiful to get really carried away. We did when we're doing ours, and we literally went, oh my god, we love this, we love this, we love this, and then we kind of come away with our kind of beer budget and went, yeah, we can't have any of that. We really want all that stuff, but we can't have it.
How much less can you do, John, so that I can have this kitchen? How much less can you pay all the guys?
Basically, what I want is the last 3 months free, please. That's all right, and I have a nice kitchen.
Yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes because there's so many times that we can advise people on the way, but really, it's beyond our control as builders to force someone to do something that they don't want to do. And of course, that every project we do is about building relationships with people as well, because it's only, right up until recently, all of the work that we've done over the years has been strictly word of mouth. So every job for us is to make sure we're making people happy, that they will tell people. Yeah. And that works. Yeah. It really does. Of course, if you ever do a bad job, someone will tell 100 people. If you do a good job, they might tell 10. Yeah, and I know how hard you do work with clients, especially as I say, what I mentioned before, come to your crazy ideas. You, like for example.
Like we want lights on stairs, or we want like some sort of crazy thing built in, and you go, no, I'm not doing that. About 3 hours later, you come out and you go, yeah, I've sorted that. Yeah. Pull out tables. We've got secret doors. We've had all sorts of crazy stuff in the past that we've kind of gone, what about this? And you've gone, oh, I don't know about that.
I think it's more about not wanting to be on the job any longer than I have to. That never works out.
All good.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions we get asked as well is, how long does the average extension or conversion take to complete? I know it's dependent on size, but normally a loft conversion is going to take, I'm guessing, 3 months, depending on size.
Yeah, I mean, we've done loft conversions in 4 weeks.
Okay.
We've also done loft conversions in 6 months.
Okay.
It really depends. I mean, for your average, if you said an average 3-bedroom semi-detached house, that loft conversion could take around the 6-week mark.
Okay, cool.
Single story extensions, couple of months.
Yeah,
tend to be a couple of months worth of work.
That's pretty cool.
You can go hammer at tongs of things, but there's sometimes it gets a bit much when you've got too many trades all working around each other.
They'll bump into each other and actually creates a longer process.
Yeah, it's better to work steady than flood a job with trades, because it becomes confusing for me to keep an eye on everybody all at the same time.
Yeah.
A great example of this is every time we have the plumbers in,
they're just everywhere, aren't they?
My guys almost want to take days off, because I spend all of my time answering questions, deciding how to route pipes and get cables out of the way and bits and pieces like that. So you can get swallowed up if you've got too many people. So, keeping it to those sensible time scales are great.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you encounter problems along the way, then it does add time.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's a good indicator.
Yeah.
I think.
That's cool. Excellent, mate. Wicked. The other thing we were going to probably touch on is kind of how you can kind of raise the extra money to be able to do these things. So normally what will happen is after you've been to see after you've got some building quotes, and John, yourself, for example, you'd probably expect clients to maybe have 2 or 3 or 4 different quotes so they know kind of where they stand.
Yeah.
You'd encourage that.
Yeah. It's always good to know you're in the right market, If ever we quote on a job, I always recommend to people get another couple at least.
At least if the clients could kind of, how can they stop? The only way I can think maybe they can kind of stop that from happening is to be pre-prepared. So say, for example, they do have, 2 or 3 bedrooms. If they've already done those boreholes, they've already know what, they've been told by building control how deep those footings have to be. Surely at that point, you're able to compare them like for like. So it's all about probably, as I said it before, all about pre-planning basically. So if you can have a look and see that, building control have told you that they've got to be 1,200 or 1,500 deep, whatever else it is, at least you can see what he's dug down, building control have come out.
It's not always easy. It's not always easy to do that in advance.
Okay.
That kind of thing. If you've got a structural engineer on board, Neil, who we use, for example, he's got a guy that he can put on site while he will quote for a job.
Yeah.
He will say to you, it might cost you £900 for these structural engineering drawings. It will help me a lot better if I know what the house is sitting on and how that works.
Yeah, of course.
So we've got this guy. This is how much he's going to cost. He'll come and do test digs and boreholes beforehand.
Yeah.
That can all be done before you even get building control involved.
Perfect. So that means that then and again, planning and that sort of stuff. So if someone does come in and come in too cheap, at least you can ask them how deep are the footing's going to be. They've got to be 15, they've got to be this, they've got to be that. At least you can kind of take a lot of the guesswork out of it.
I mean, the biggest and the hardest one to get over is building control won't really come out until you've initiated a builder to do the job. So that
prep
really
stuff.
Yeah. So it's all the other prep stuff beforehand.
Perfect.
But a lot of it ultimately comes down to relationships as well.
Yeah.
If you choose a builder, you chose a builder based on a good conversation you had with him, a handshake at the end of the evening, and a decent chat about what you wanted.
Yeah.
If no one
and
else
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels, yeah, sure. But if you have someone turn up, they don't really pay attention too much. They're just looking around and they go, right, yeah, well, it's going to cost you this much. You're not going to get the right feel from them, are you? You want someone to care about the job they do, and that's what I find is. I think that care comes across when I speak to a lot of my clients.
It does. The one thing that we have. John, we recommend you to absolutely everyone that because of what you've done with us past.
That's where the Jack Daniels comes in. I can't sleep at night.
So obviously, recommend you kind of friends and family, that sort of stuff. And the thing I would say is the fact that sometimes. I don't know how to say this without sounding harsh, but there will be lots of questions that you'll ask before you'll know how much your job's going to cost, and those sorts of questions are perfect questions, which is what's the ground like, what's this, what are the pipes like, what's this like, what's that like, and I know firsthand that before you want to commit to someone, you want to know all the variables, so there is less chance for it going kind of wrong at the back end. So it's good to have someone on board that kind of at least can. You want to know that stuff up front, and the level of detail builder goes through with you should be a relatively high detail, I would imagine. So the very last part, we're just going to cover, how we can kind of help you raise those costs. So, recommend that you go to a broker with ourselves or someone else. And once you've got all the information for costs up front, you've looked at all the variables, at least you've got a rough idea of where you want to be, add some contingency on just in case. We'll obviously, every single, every single build job, like every single mortgage is individual.
Yeah.
So we'll have to sit down and work out what your individual circumstances are. Potentially we can look to, remortgage you to a new lender and maybe raise that amount. Potentially we could look at a second charge. Potentially, some clients may even look at, off their own back, maybe unsecured loans if the job's relatively small, if it's just a bathroom or just a kitchen. But we can always look to kind of help clients remortgage that back into the properties at a later date to try and add value to those properties, basically. In order to kind of raise funds, we can do remortgages, we can do second charges, we can do further advances from your current lender. We can have a look and see what's possible and not possible. We can have a look and see what's possible and what's not possible. But initially, they're going to need to know, a client's going to need to know roughly what it's going to cost them, basically. From that point, we can work out how to get them that money.
Yeah.
John, is there anything else that you want to go through?
No.
Thanks for listening. Unfortunately, we've got time for today. I would like to say a massive thank you to our special guest, John Wilshire from Choose Right Construction. John, thank you very much, bud.
Welcome.
Hopefully it wasn't too painful.
It's fine. It's all
right?
Yeah.
I know you're a bit nervous.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks for coming and speaking to us. If you found this helpful, don't forget to follow and subscribe and hit that bell button for new notifications. Thank you very much and see you again next